This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The science fiction podcast with original independent science fiction written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the science fiction podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. I have Chapter 18 of Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her, part of the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus, coming up on this episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. Let me set up the situation. Alibi Jones is about to head to a planet where he's been told he's a dead man. If he lands there, so. He's going anyway. Kismet is a human colony world outside of the rules and jurisdiction of the Solar Alliance, and under the thumb of the crime lord Renee Lavallure. Lavallure kidnapped Alibi's girlfriend, Katie Ramsey. Lavallure claims to own her and her family after her father's gambling debts came due. In kidnapping her, Lavallure's men raided a joining ceremony of the Darkur, the cat-like alien Darkur, held on a supposedly neutral spaceport and station that was actually owned by Lavallure. And Katie and Alibi had been invited to the joining of Alibi's now former Darkur friend, Kit, with his life partner Trish. It's like a Darkur wedding, the joining. And Lavallure's raiders kidnapped Katie, killed Trish, and the priceless relic, the Sunrise of Her, went missing. Now, Alibi just tracked down the Sunrise of Her, but now Kit has gone missing. And his family feared he'd gone to Kismet to try to kill Lavallure. And now that's been confirmed. He's been caught. So, Alibi Jones is going to head to Kismet in disguise with the Darkur, hoping to free Kit and rescue Katie, and keep himself alive. Coming up in Chapter 18 of Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her on this episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. A big thank you to my patrons who help keep the show going, and if you're a patron, thank you. Got a handful of people who have been loyal and dedicated and helped me pay the bills for ages now, and I could use your help too if you can do this. If you want to become a patron and you've been enjoying the show and want to help support it, $2, $5, or $10 a month is what I'm asking. If you become a member, you can do that over at Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. And again, huge thank you to patrons, to you if you're a patron, for doing so. In book news, the Kickstarter rewards are out. The Always Punch Nazis Omnibus is out, with Alibi Jones, The Legacy, featured in its pages by myself and Juan Carlos Quattordio. It's a beautiful black hardcover with gold embossed logo on the cover, and there's still some available. I did post on the Glow in the Dark Radio Substack me opening my copy of Always Punch Nazis, so you can check that out. You can see me opening up the omnibus, see what it looks like. And if you want to get one, just head to the Pilot Studios Etsy site. So that's etsy.com/Pilot Studios, kind of. I'll put the actual link in the show notes. That's a quick look at book news. We're going to get into Chapter 18 of Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her next on Glow in the Dark Radio.
Under 30,000 feet of water, The exploration rig Leaguer has discovered an oil field larger than Saudi Arabia, with oil so sweet and pure, nations would go to war for the rights to it. But as the team starts drilling exploration wells in their race to claim the sweet crude, a deep rumbling beneath the ocean floor shakes them to their core. Something has been living in the oil. Paul E. Cooley's The Black is a techno-horror thriller reminiscent of movies such as Leviathan and The Thing, and puts terror right into readers' ears. The Black, a free podcast novel available from shadowpublications.com and iTunes. Ocean exploration will never be the same.
Now here's Chapter 18 of Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her on Glow in the Dark Radio. Kismet is a world made for pleasure. As you land in the lavish and opulent spaceport, the glistening and shiny side of the city is displayed. The dark underside of slave quarters and labor dormitories remains underground and unseen. Although the entire planet is known as Kismet, Kismet itself is really just the city. The rest of the planet is wild and untamed. A bit like René Lavallure himself. He seems to be a businessman, but is much more than he seems. And the polished parts first seen are only a small part of the man and his criminal empire holdings. René Lavallure rose to prominence as a CEO, and finally attained an appointment to the ruling board of the old UTZ, the Universal Trade Zone, only to have that board lose its power as the Solar Alliance was created. His frustration as the board shifted from a body with true power to a mere advisory board was immense, like his appetites. An ornamental role was unappealing to Lavallure. He resigned the board. Then Lavallure beefed up the power plant on his family's orbital company platform, added transpace drives, and took off for the stars to find a planet more to his liking. The old Eldred expanses hold thousands of abandoned worlds. Problem is, when the Eldred died off and left those planets abandoned, most of the time they poisoned those planets in a last-gasp attempt at keeping other races from later looting their worlds for technology and knowledge. Plagues, toxins, defense arrays, many deadly surprises on the old abandoned worlds of the Eldred. This did not deter René Lavallure. Lavallure is not a man who values life or lives, save for his own. Even before the platform left the Solar Alliance, the Lavallures had a reputation for wanton disregard for the safety of their employees. 2 or 3 fatal accidents a week were the norm for the Lavallure platform. Like his father before him, René Lavallure's answer to these tragedies was usually short, simple, harsh, and brutal. Space is a dangerous place. When still in Earth orbit, the casinos on the Lavallure platform did a brisk tourist trade. There were rumors of prostitution and illegal fighting, but the UTZ never really investigated the allegations. Even talk of slave labor and a slave trade out of the Lavallure platform was squashed. At the time, the Lavallure Foundation began running a series of "I love working for Lavallure" ads. Lavallure was known to pay some employees very well, those it did pay. But the orbital dormitory on their platform was off limits to the public. Again, there were rumors of indentured servitude, and worse, more sordid practices. After powering up the platform and heading for the stars, Lavallure changed over to his own currency on board, the yacht, as Lavallure called it. Once outside of the Solar Alliance, tourists had to change Solar Alliance dollars into Lavallure dollars for gambling. When leaving, they'd change their winnings, when there were any, back into SA dollars. But all employees were paid in Lavallure dollars, which were only good on the yacht. The Lavalore platform spent the first couple of years after leaving the Solar Alliance in constant motion. The yacht traveled from planet to planet, mooring in orbit for a month or two, or until commanded to leave. Lavalore's people were the first to reach her and made first contact with the Dakur. The Solar Alliance stepped in quickly to let the Dakur know Lavalore was not a typical example of how humans behaved. Her was one of the last inhabited planets the yacht visited. After that, Lavalore set out for the Eldred Expanses. Lavalore gambled that if there were thousands of abandoned planets in Eldred space, there had to be one or two that hadn't been rendered completely uninhabitable. Look at the odds. Not that the odds were with you if you were gambling at Lavalore's casino on the yacht. With no oversight from the Solar Alliance, Lavalore was free to rig his games however he pleased. Lavalore was good at that game. He'd rig games often enough to make a healthy profit, but not so much he'd scare the marks off. He'd let a few marks go away rich, and let celebrities win big so they'd talk up the yacht. But Lavalore's people were also instructed to make a few marks lose it all. These in turn were then forced to become part of the crew, indentured into Lavalore's employ. Utilizing his always replenishing crew supply as figurative cannon fodder, Lavalore began exploring Eldred planets. What did it matter to him if an entire expedition was poisoned, sickened, or driven mad? Lavalore would simply cross that planet off his list of potential homes and move on to the next candidate world. The expedition that landed on the world they would come to call Kismet returned to the yacht with no visible negative side effects. Later scientific analysis would determine that the plague the Eldred had released on Kismet had been so virulent that it burnt itself out. Starving plague microbes consumed themselves, leaving a still-living planet of scattered oceans, continents covered in vegetation in their temperate zones, an oxygen and nitrogen atmosphere, and no higher organic life forms. An Earth-like, abandoned world. It wasn't perfect. The 4 Eldred cities on the world were full of rotting Eldred corpses. Cleaning up the bodies and the buildings would have taken a very long time, so Lavalore ordered them leveled. His fleet of 4 Stinger ships strafed the cities with their ship's blasters, creating glassy craters where the cities used to stand. On the edge of one of the world's vast oceans, the crater of one of the cities filled with water, creating an almost circular bay. When Lavalore's scientists assured him it was safe to move to the surface, he decided to ground the yacht. He ordered his people to clear a landing area, and a hollowed-out depression was created next to the circular bay. Orbital platforms are not usually built for atmospheric re-entry or maneuvering, but the yacht was unusual, adapted for interstellar travel. The additional shielding and directional engines added to its structure allowed it to be carefully lowered and maneuvered through Kismet's atmosphere and into place. The platform was landed relatively intact and became the foundation for Lavalore's new city. The yacht's power plant became the power source for the city and the world of Kismet. Kismet no longer resembles an orbital platform, although the yacht's original casino lies at the heart of the city. Casinos are best kept windowless. No real changes were required to adapt the casino to the rest of its surroundings. But the rest of the city grew upward from the platform. New structures were built as extensions of the interior, rising up into the Kismet sky and outward as well. Docks were built, extending out over what they dubbed Circle Bay. Residences and dormitories were built further inland. It takes more to run a planet than it does to run a ship, even a ship as large as the Lavalore's orbital platform. Lavalore's organization began to change, adapting to the needs of running a world. He began to bring in unsavory allies to undertake some of this work. The pirate known as Mr. Peterson was one of the first. Peterson brought with him his fleet of 10 Stinger ships, all modified, as well as an orbital construction and repair facility. His ships and shipyard became Lavalore's and Kismet's, and Peterson became Lavalore's right-hand man. Peterson avoided the spotlight the same way Lavalore craved it. The two became perfect complementary business partners. Peterson's pirates were legitimized into the KDF, the Kismet Defense Force. Not that they curtailed their illegal activity. They merely tithed a tribute back to Lavalor in return for his protection. Kismet's luxurious main starport is on the planet's surface a short distance north of the city, on the shore of the bay. The newest construct on Kismet is the round Circle Bay Casino, southeast of the city, built out over the bay itself. In fact, though the high-quality restaurant and hotel have 360-degree views out over the water, the casino itself is below the waves, clear walls and floor giving panoramic views of the well-lit waterscape around the building. Alibi arrives on Kismet as part of the Dakur delegation. He's disguised as a tall female of their race, hiding under several layers of robes and fur, and trying to blend in with a crowd of Dakur in the main lobby of the Circle Bay Casino Hotel. From the back of the gathering, he sees Rakar greet Lavalor. The human is opulent and obese, easy to see at a distance. After some diplomatic niceties, the Dakur delegation is sent quickly on its way. Lavalor is providing quarters for Rakar's entire entourage. Once alone in their rooms, Rakar lets vent his anger.
The man has some nerve.
Rakar is upset.
You do know he has us under surveillance here.
Cat leans in and purrs at Rakar.
I do not care.
Rakar fumes.
He has been pestering me for years to establish a diplomatic contact with him, for the Dakur to recognize Kismet. It goes back a long time, but earlier there were, problems between Lavalor and Dakur. Now he is being coy. You Dakur do not have the power you once did, not with the Greater Ta in control of you, he tells me. The nerve, and he would kill my son.
Is he open to any negotiations? Cat asks his father.
He has agreed to meet with me tomorrow,
Rakar says.
But Kit is scheduled to be put to death in less than a week. Lavalor had the nerve to suggest he thought I had come to be here for my son's death and to claim the body.
Nobody's going to be claiming any bodies, Alibi pipes up. I'm meeting my associate soon. I'll find out where they're holding Kit, and we'll figure out a way to get him free, no matter what Lavalor plans to do. That was Chapter 18 of Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her on Glow in the Dark Radio. Got a setup going on there, I'll admit. We learned a bit about Renee Lavalor in the chapter. And Alibi Jones is now on Kismet in disguise. But there's been no sign of Katie, and Lavalor insists he's having Kit executed. So things are looking bleak. Hopefully, Brady Thomas will have some good news for Alibi. We shall see. We'll find out in Chapter 19 of Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her, coming up on our next episode. Again, a big thank you to patrons. Thank you for supporting the podcast and helping keep the lights on. And you can do so, you can help us by supporting this podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. And you can sign up for $2, $5, or $10 a month to help keep the show going. And in book news, Alibi Jones' The Legacy is now out in the Always Punch Nazis Omnibus. Big, beautiful black hardcover with gold embossed letters on the front. Available through the Pilot Studios Etsy. Their Etsy store. Link is in the show notes. And if you want to see me opening it up, just head to the Glow in the Dark Radio Substack. glowinthedarkradio.substack.com. Also linked in the show notes. That is all for this week. We will see what happens on Kismet as Alibi talks to Brady Thomas on our next episode. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. Thank you for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio. Glow in the Dark Radio. This podcast presentation is copyright 2025 by Michael F. Luoma and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. CC by NCND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at Incompetech.com. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.